Welcome to the tnAchieves Virtual Community Service webinar. These webinars are designed to provide you, Tennessee Promise students, with an opportunity to learn more about college success tips, careers in your potential field of study, and other topics we think you will find interesting while you are navigating your educational journey. These webinars will also help you complete your community service requirement while it may be difficult for you to do so at this time. A few housekeeping details before we get started. By logging in as a tnAchieves student, we are able to track your attendance and how long you remain actively engaged during the webinar. Once you complete the webinar, you will automatically be given credit for 1 hour of community service. We will track how long you watch, and if you do not watch the webinar in its entirety, you will not receive credit. You do not need to complete the community service form for these webinars. tnAchieves will log your hours for you. tnAchieves staff and partners across the state are providing important insight and information we think you will find entertaining and informative. We hope you enjoy this new series of webinars. Welcome to the tnAchieves Community Service, Virtual Community Service webinar series. Today we are talking about careers in manufacturing and engineering. We have a really great panel today. We have Carl Baldwin, who's a technical support and hiring manager at Train in Clarksville, Alan Ogle, who's a senior engineer for Chattanooga Public Works, and Erika Green-Smith, who is a senior recruiter at Denso. A panel today with a lot of expertise and experience in the field. And I'm really excited to chat with them today. And students, I hope that if this is something that you're interested in, you walk away today with a better understanding of what exactly a future career might look like if you're interested in manufacturing and engineering. So Carl, Alan, Erika, thanks so much for being here today.
You're welcome.
We're glad to be here.
Absolutely.
Carl, why don't we start with you? We'll maybe work east to west today. Tell us just a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you went to college, degrees that you may have earned, and kind of a little bit about your career.
I was born in the Northeast in upstate New York, lived 15 years in Phoenix, Arizona, and 30 plus years here in Tennessee. After I got out of the military, I went to a trade school to learn HVAC service and repair. Figured out pretty quick that I just knew enough to be dangerous. Went on to a community college and earned a associate's degree in refrigeration. And then I went on to a four-year college and got a bachelor's degree in engineering technology. That's my background in education. Spent 10 years as a field service technician, and the rest of the time at Train in various positions as a technical expert and product support and technical service manager for Train.
Great, Carl. Thanks so much. Alan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was born and raised in Knoxville and figured I would eventually wind up at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, which I did straight out of high school. Unfortunately, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So after a couple of years of that, I quit going to school, was young and full of vinegar and knew that I could just dominate the world no matter what I tried to do. That didn't work out nearly as well as I expected. So after a few years, I went back to college there at UT in Knoxville. Well, I started at 2-year college at Pellissippi State and got an associate's degree, as much as Carl did. Then I transferred to the University of Tennessee, got a 4-year degree, was lucky enough to find a job after I got my associate. So I was working for an engineering company while going to school, and they were very beneficial in helping me partially pay for that. And from there, I just kept going. I worked my years, took my professional engineering exam, worked for several small consulting companies along the way. And then when I had a chance to move down to Chattanooga, I did that and wound up working for the company that designed the Walker chemical plant just north of Chattanooga. And then after the work there was wrapped up from the civil engineering point, I wound my way into a career at the city of Chattanooga in their public works department, which is the construction side of the city. So been there for about 6 years now, just having a good time and building stuff.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Erika, what about you?
Yeah, so Erika Greensmith, and I received my bachelor's degree in business at Maryville College. I went on to get my master's in human resources from Tusculum College. I spent over 10 years in human resources and recruiting, and I'm currently a senior recruiter with Denso Manufacturing in Maryville, Tennessee. My primary role is to recruit people to come work for Denso. One of the aspects of my job that I really, really love is I'm very involved in workforce development initiatives in our community in the East Tennessee area. So I work with a lot of K through 12 administrators and colleges and Chamber of Commerce's in the area on their initiatives and working together on workforce development.
Great. Thank you so much for that introduction. And thank you again. Thank all of you again for being here today. Erika, why don't we start with you this time? Why don't you tell us a little bit about opportunities at Denso for students as they're graduating from college, and maybe a little bit about opportunities that exist if you have a high school diploma versus an associate's degree versus a bachelor's degree, kind of as you work your way through more and more education.
Right. So Denso is the second largest automotive supplier in the world. So we are international. Our largest manufacturing facility in North America is actually in Maryville, Tennessee. We make a lot of key fobs, instrument clusters, heads-up displays, a lot of the electronics that you would see in a car we make. So we're a very, very large company. In Maryville, we have around 5,000 employees. So there are a lot of local opportunities for sure, but what makes us a really great employer is that, you know, we have opportunities all over the globe for people to work in an area that interests them. So you asked about what kind of careers. So there's a couple of different buckets, and one of them is, you know, corporate. We hire accounting, human resources, IT type people. Those would require a degree. Either an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. The next bucket that we would, career field is engineering. So we hire a lot of mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, industrial engineers, computer. That would also require a degree. And then the third bucket would be manufacturing, our production and logistics associates. Those folks would require a high school diploma. What's really great about Denso, and I can talk about this later, but most of our workforce is going to be in this production and logistics career field. So what we do is we have tuition reimbursement. So once you get in and you just have the high school diploma and you see all of the great career opportunities, we can help you, we go on to the next level with an associate's or bachelor's degree. Some other buckets that we have are research and development, sales, and then the other one that I'm working really hard on for workforce development is our skilled trades. So those are people that are, machine shop maintenance, tool and die maintenance, and these people would require, some type of technical diploma from, either somewhere like Pellissippi State or TCAT, Roan State, something like that. And we would also help, employees that want to go that route get those technical certifications and things like that.
So it sounds like you got a lot of opportunities for students that would be pursuing Tennessee Promise, whether they've gone the TCAT route, the community college route, or they're planning to transfer to a four-year university. Lots of opportunities at Denso, kind of regardless of where you fall in your educational career.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Erika. Alan, why don't you tell us a little bit about opportunities for students, maybe at Chattanooga Public Works, or maybe in that public sector just in general?
Well, the city of Chattanooga offers quite a number of internships for college students of various levels. I know that we hire, I think, in the public works department, I think we hired 6 or 7 recently for summer internship positions. I'm not sure how that's going to work out this summer for sure, but we are uh, almost every year looking for some interns to get a little bit of practical experience in the public works division. That's public works is the part that does all of the work, the physical work that involves maintaining the city. That includes garbage pickup, parks maintenance, anything that involves keeping the city running on a physical level. And professionally, we have people that have high school degrees, we've got people with technical degrees, and we've got people with college diplomas. So there's a lot of opportunities there for a lot of backgrounds. Um, we probably don't hire nearly as many people as Denso does, but we do have openings come up all across the board because we operate libraries, we operate municipal structures. We've got the mayor's office, so there's opportunities for accounting, bookkeeping, just pretty much anything and everything. Being a city, we probably have a few people in every level that work at the city, and we do have a bit of turnover. It's a really good place to work, and a lot of people stay there. But as large as the city is, there are constantly people with leaving the city or retiring, and quite a few openings come up every year for a variety of positions.
Yes, sir. Thanks for sharing that with us. Carl, what about you at Train specifically? What kind of degrees are you looking for with students, and kind of what are the opportunities as you get more and more education?
Train is very similar to what Erika talked about. Of course, we manufacture, so we have entry-level positions of people that work on the manufacturing floor and can start out with just a high school education. But there's also a lot of advancement opportunity there to line supervisors, shift supervisors, department managers, and depending on your skill and education, you can move up there. But we also have engineering. We have a lab requiring lab technicians. Uh, Beyond just manufacturing heating and cooling units, Train has extensive acoustical and vibration labs around the country where we test a lot of our products. So we have opportunities for people to go from working on the assembly line, depending on their education, all the way up to engineering projects. I spent most of my career in the product support technical service side of that, where we supported our dealers, contractors, and customers over the phone. And hopefully, I think we're going to get into this later. My department required, beyond your technical and engineering skills, a lot of personal soft skills. And we can talk about those later.
Yeah, it's absolutely something I want to talk to you guys about. Carl, I think when most people think about Train, I know when I think about Train, you think of the trucks that are working on HVACs and stuff, but there's quite a bit of other things going on there. You touched on some of them, but kind of what are maybe some of those other opportunities besides maybe the HVAC specialists that might pop into our minds?
Well, along with HVAC, there's the acoustical side of that in vibration and side of that. Alan can probably attest to this. If you build a high-rise building, you can't just throw a big piece of equipment on there and think it's going to work. There's a lot of analysis that goes along with that. And one of the things that manufacturers do today is they support the engineering community out in the field to make that all work. I spent a lot of time traveling around the country over the years working with movie theaters on acoustical issues that go beyond the heating and cooling units and go to the building structure itself, so that the patrons have a good experience here in the movies, not listening to the HVAC humming and drumming up there. So in manufacturing, it branches out beyond just building something and selling it to somebody. It's supporting that product and making it work so the customer's satisfied once they purchase it.
Yes, sir. Thank you for sharing that insight into Train there. Alan, what are like some specific projects that someone in engineering may be working on in Chattanooga Public Works at any given time?
Well, in my position, I am both a project manager and a civil designer. So I spend about half of my time doing each. On the project management side, I've managed multi-million-dollar projects, such as the city recently had to stabilize the riverfront, where we have a lot of tourists come every season. We host a Riverbend Festival, where we have a music festival for several days. And several years back, there was a large dock that was constructed in that area to allow people to come into the city through the river. Um, Part of the river bank beneath the dock started to slide into the river, and we had to spend I forgot the total, but it's several $1 million trying to stabilize that beneath this massive concrete dock that we had. I was a project manager for that. That was really an interesting thing to be involved in. On the design side, I design an awful lot of small things, 30 feet worth of sidewalk to meet ADA requirements for handicap ramps, small parks, small parking lots, things of that nature. Things that the city would normally have to pay a civil engineering firm to do that would cost us $20,000 in fees. I can do that as part of my regular job and save the city several times my annual salary, just in the fact that we can design that in house instead of farming that out to someone else. So um, I get involved in all kinds of things. So it's really an interesting place to be. I've done a lot of water projects, stormwater projects, pretty much a wide variety of anything and everything that a civil engineer does. Now, the problem is a lot of people don't really understand what a civil engineer does in general. So basically, we're involved in building, designing, helping to maintain anything and everything that civilization uses. So roads, bridges, dams, canals, um, sewer systems, water systems, storm drain systems. If you've ever pulled into the parking lot at Walmart during a heavy rain and had to slosh through an inch of water, it would be 12 inches of water if there wasn't a pipe system underneath the parking lot. So,
Sure.
wide variety of things that civil engineers in general do. And I get to do a little bit of all of that working for the city.
Yeah, and Erika, kind of on the flip side of that, working for a private sector company where the ultimate goal is to turn a profit. What are the advantages to working in the private sector, and why is Denso such a great place to go to work?
Right. So, as you know, private sector, businesses are run by individuals instead of the government. So the intention is to make a profit, like you mentioned. So what we can do with these profits is, in most cases, generally we can provide higher type salaries and offer bonuses. We can invest back in learning and development for our employees. And then we can also use, these profits for, doing fun things, for our employees. So some of the things that Denso does is just, some easy things is we provide, barbecues, things like that for our employees. We have events at, the Smokies baseball games. We also have an on-site fitness center with a full basketball court and tennis courts and a weight center. We have an on-site medical facility where people can see a doctor and a nurse and don't have to go, too far to go do that. But really just investing back in the training, for our employees to develop them.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing that. I want to ask Erika and Carl a question, and Alan, if you have any insight, please feel free to pipe in here. But You both talked a little bit about the manufacturing side of your organizations. I think manufacturing in 2020 isn't maybe what it used to be. I know I've toured some manufacturing plants around the state. There's expensive machinery. There is equipment that you guys don't just let people in off the street come and start messing with these machines that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. It requires training and education. So what does the future of manufacturing look like, and what kind of skills do students need, and what can they be doing to prepare for that today?
I will attempt to talk about that. Here in Clarksville, the manufacturing plant in Clarksville is about 50 or 60 years old, and there's, I think, some original equipment there, which you would see in some old time movies or whatnot. I likened it to a blacksmith shop, but there's also some state of the art manufacturing equipment, which has a lot of electronics. It's just it can take a roll of sheet metal and you load it, and you program it, and it just cuts out cookie cutter pieces, one piece after another. Of course, it takes somebody with more than just a knack to fix their car to operate and work on that piece of equipment. So, and we're transitioning more and more every day to that more sophisticated manufacturing type of process. So education becomes more and more critical every day. If you want to get ahead in any industry, you've got to be able to understand and work with technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I think education and training is really important. Erika, do you want to elaborate at all?
Yeah, so same thing, it's a really exciting time to be in manufacturing. It's not, what it was 20 years ago. There's a lot of automation and robotics. But one of the main things that Denso prides itself on is, being a clean environment. No dust particles in the air or on your clothing. So they go through a lot of steps before you even enter the building. Some areas have like wind tunnels. You have to change your shoes into your work shoes once you enter the building. So it's a very, very clean environment, especially in our industry, because we are dealing with electronics, that go in your car, and a speck of, a dust or something like that could, hinder a part. So that's really important. But for us, we have a lot of, artificial intelligence, robotics, virtual reality that we actually use in some things. We do a lot of 3D printing, things like that. So just a lot of changes going on in not only manufacturing, but in the automotive world as well.
Yeah, and Alan, talk to us a little bit about more on the engineering side of things. What has technology done to revolutionize the engineering field, and what does engineering look like in 2020, but also into the future?
Well, the biggest thing that I've noticed in my career is when I started in engineering, we had a lot of engineers that would sketch up something, do the calculations required, prepare a rough sketch, and then they would hand it to a CAD operator who would sit down in front of a computer using AutoCAD or some similar program, and they would make a nice, pretty engineering drawing for whatever it was. And I know this applies both in the manufacturing world and in the civil engineering world, and in a lot of other situations where you're designing things to be built. The software involved has become so much more involved that engineers now are just sitting down with the CAD software because it's got everything designed in it to do all the calculations that you need. So the role of a drafts person that we used to have in the design field is pretty much going away. Where when I started, one engineer could keep 2 or 3 draftsmen busy because drawing up the plans was a major part of it. But now one engineer would only have work to keep one CAD operator busy for a few hours because most of the real design work is done inside the CAD program. That's a major shift that I've seen just in my career, and in anything that involves design work. Even the people that we still hire occasionally to do CAD work have to be a lot more proficient in the use of the computers and what all the software can do, because the software is much more elaborate than it was even 10 or 15 years ago. So it's still a very viable career, but it's a lot more complicated than it was, back then.
Yeah, and I think too, kind of a follow up to the previous question for all of you, whoever would like to jump in first. We hear a lot about automation today, and what might that do for the future workforce in your fields, and what can students do to prepare for that?
Well, automation is definitely established itself in manufacturing and will continue to do so. And you just have to keep up with that as far as the latest advancements. The companies are always looking, or private sector companies like Denso and Train, they have to make a profit. And they look at technology as a way and a means to make a profit. And that's not going to stop. I mean, we're starting to see that now, even in the fast food industries, where you call in your order, they got machines that prepare a lot of it. And so some of those opportunities go away, but it creates other opportunities. Kind of like Alan said, drafting is kind of a industry that's going away, but it's replaced by the engineer that does a lot of that himself. So it's just ever evolving.
I agree with Carl too. Because it is becoming, very automated. That just gives us, the opportunity to introduce new products, more lines that are making these items, creating opportunities to hire more people, hire, maybe more skilled type people to fix these, robots or systems that we're using for the automated process.
Is it safe to say that maybe the days of having just your high school diploma here really soon in the future just won't get you in the door anymore, that you're going to have some type of training or education after high school?
I think that's very clear that as we go to a more technical world, you're going to need more education. I mean, there's things kicked around now that maybe you can't learn everything you need to learn to get a engineering or electronics degree in 4 years. We have a lot of aids, programming calculators, computers. There's a lot of programs to help us, but there's still a lot to really understand and learn as the world becomes more technical.
Well, and I think there's, going to be a need for, all types of people for sure. But the opportunities once you're in, we can help you attain those skill sets, either with online, training in-house, or sending you somewhere to like a TCAT. So I think our goal is, maybe get people in, at all levels. But even if you come in with just a high school diploma, we will help you get to the next level. And we want people to have that kind of growth mindset anyway.
I agree with that. The Train paid for my education at to get my bachelor's degree. The United States Navy paid for me to get my 2-year degree. So there's a lot of help out there. And of course, we look at this program that Tennessee has, which I think is fantastic to get people started out on the right foot.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like it's an ever-changing field right now, with a lot of new things coming, new technology, things that are changing all the time. Alan, we'll maybe start with you this time. Why is now an exciting time to go into a manufacturing or engineering field?
Oh, I think it's exciting just because of the advancements that we see, every year. Civil engineering, which is what I do, has been around for 100 years or more. We're always going to have rain that needs to be removed. We're always going to have water that needs to get to people. We're always going to have sewer systems that need to be maintained. But there's so much automation improvements in all of that area where you just got to keep up with it. It's exciting. I don't know of any field anymore where you can get into it and it just kind of stays stagnant for 20, 30 years. You got to learn things. You got to learn things new every week. And I don't work in the manufacturing field, but I do have some friends, and a couple of my kids work in it, and they're constantly telling me about how things are evolving, and they're all the time being sent to classes and schools to learn how to operate a new piece of machinery or to learn how the new technology works. So if you're not the kind of person that's geared toward maintaining learning for lifelong, then you're going to be left behind.
Carl, Erica, anything you guys would like to add?
I just want.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to second Alan's comment about if you're not continually learning, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially being in the private sector. You're competing for business. You're competing for the next, innovative thing that consumers are going to want. So that's really important. And that's why, Denso invests so much on, advancements and technologies.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and it kind of leads into the next thing I want to talk about. And Carl, you touched on this earlier. Are some of those, what employers call soft skills? It's something that we hear from a lot of employers and more that students aren't prepared to work collaboratively or to work on a team. We did a in-demand careers webinar in this series with one of your peers at Nissan, who talked about the number one thing students are going to be doing in a job is problem solving, and those are things you don't necessarily learn in a classroom with a textbook. So are you finding in your field that those skills you struggle to find students that are prepared with those skills? And then I'll ask kind of on the flip side of that, what can students be doing now to get those skills?
You're exactly right. There's no classes in interpersonal relationships. There's no classes in how to get along with other people. And I worked, most of my career was supporting customers where we worked with our customers. And those skills were extremely important. What I would say, at least what I looked for when I would read a resume, was anything that the applicant had put on there, like I worked as a waiter or a waitress, I coached youth softball, I worked with the youth group at church, anything that they had worked with other people. I directed the choir at church. I organized the sewing club. All of that, those little things I would really pick up on, because that was the only indication that those people, that they had interpersonal skills and that they could get along with somebody else. It seems insignificant, but the trade schools and the colleges, their grades indicate how well they did on the technical side. Maybe a bunch of us could get together and come up with a class on how to work with each other and all become rich. I don't know. But it was always a struggle. And when I talk to my students, when we actually get together and meet. That's one of the things I stress, that you may have the best technical skills, but you're going to have to deal with people.
I would agree with that, Carl. One of my suggestions for students to get skills like this outside the classroom is, practice. Practice things like problem solving, and the way they can do that is by becoming involved in STEM clubs, robotics clubs. It's like a foreign language. If you don't practice it, you're going to lose it. So, collaboration, teamwork, problem solving. They need to get involved in organizations or teams, even a sports team, where they're doing those softer skills on a continual basis, and they'll become, it'll be second nature to them, and they'll be a better employee for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Carl and Erika said. But one thing I might add that a lot of people wouldn't think about is you've got to get involved in things, clubs, organizations, things of that nature that put you outside of your comfort zone. So many high school kids and early college level kids that I run across are pretty ensconced in their own little world. They know what they're comfortable with, but you got to get outside of that comfort zone. And for some of these kids, it's not as big a problem as for others, but that's a very important skill in and of itself, is just being able to push yourself beyond your current limits or your comfort level into other situations that force you into broadening your comfort level and your skill sets more than what you are. I see so many high school kids jump into college, but they pretty much maintain their own little group. And when they do find new friends, it's friends that are exactly the same as the friends they previously had in high school. You've got to be able to expand your own horizons and expand your own comfort level.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I know I was a president of an organization in college, about 150 people, that taught me more than probably any classroom, just how to work with your peers, how to work with the administration of the university, how to work with my peers' parents. I think that's really sound advice for students as they are working their way through their college careers. So I'll ask all of you again, Erika, maybe if you want to kick us off this time. What are some mistakes you see new employees making, and what can our students today start doing to be prepared to not make those same mistakes?
Well, one is being able to work in a team. No matter if you're, have a technical background or a business type background, you're gonna have to work with people, whether it's customers, your, other employees, your coworkers, your boss. So that's one challenge. So just again, practicing working with people. And then another one is just very simple. I see a lot of new employees making is being late for work. Start good habits now for being on time. This is so important, especially when you're in a manufacturing type environment, because every second, every minute matters. So just, practice those habits while you're in high school. Get to school on time, get to practice on time, those types of things.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I mean, a couple things you can control: your attitude and if you're on time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Alan, what about you? What are some mistakes maybe you see new employees making that you could help our students today prevent making those same mistakes?
Well, probably the biggest thing I see whenever I'm dealing with people that are fairly new to a professional workplace, and when I say professional, I'm including manufacturing, because to me that's a very professional environment. Even if you're on a line, putting together parts. But one thing I see that I know the pitfalls of this is a lot of young people are pretty wrapped up in social media, Facebook, um, things of that nature. And at work, that is not your friend. You've got to be able to put your phone down and concentrate on the task at hand for several hours at a time sometimes, because that's what you're being paid to do. And if you cannot disconnect yourself from your social media in order to do your job, then you're going to find that that's going to come back to bite you. Once you get a job, you're competing with other people. And you see some of them and some of them you don't see, but everybody is trying to get some advancement in their career, some advancement in the company. Everybody is learning new things, trying to become better. And you've got to be able to concentrate on that while you're at work. Now, once you're on your lunch break, what you do is up to you. But whenever you're at work, I've seen a lot of people kind of shoot themselves in the foot by constantly dragging their phone out to check their latest tweet rather than concentrating on the job at hand. So that's something that you got to be able to avoid.
I think that's really good advice. Carl, what about you?
I think Erika and Alan have hit almost everything. The only thing I would add on is in the private sector, the emphasis is to make a profit. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like Erika said earlier, you reinvest that in your company to expand products, expand what you do. And it takes all of those things, being on time, continuously learning, getting along with everybody else. It takes all of that. And that's hard for a lot of people, young folks right out of school that, maybe their social group in their video games is all they've interacted with. And now they're in a totally different environment. They just need to be open and want to learn and want to advance and continue to learn, because it's going to be that way for the rest of their career.
Well, we like to, as we're kind of getting close on time here, we like to end this with 3 questions for all of our panelists. So kind of stepping outside of our topic for today, and just some general advice for college students, I guess, for these last few. Carl, we can start with you, and we'll have all 3 of you guys answer all 3 of these questions if you don't mind. But what's something that you know now that you did not know when you were in college that you wish you knew back in those days?
Well, when I started college, I thought I knew everything. I found out real quick I didn't. I guess I wish I knew how important it was to continually learn and just generally get along with other people and be a team player. I don't think I fully understood that when I first entered into my working career.
Alan, what about you?
Well, I'm like Carl. I wish I'd have known that the working with teams was important, because I was somewhat introverted in high school, and I didn't make friends all that easily. So the team skills are very important, and that ties into what I was already thinking about whenever you raised the question, which is you have to understand that who you know and how you relate to people is more important, or probably more important in your career development than the technical skills that you learn in college. You got to be able to do well in your classes, because that's what gets you started on your career. But once you get started, it's a lot of relationships that help determine how well and how fast you are able to move up the ladder and build your career.
I think that's really strong advice, Erika.
For me, I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do when I got to college. So what I wish I had done is done various internships so that I can gain experiences in different careers, to have a better idea. It took me a while to find something that I was good at, something that I enjoyed, and something that I could make money at. So I would encourage people to get out there and do, various types of internships to see what they really enjoy and like.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Next question, Alan, we'll start with you this time. If you had just one piece of advice for students, what would it be?
Um, I would say get to know your teachers. This is something that probably every class of mentor mentee relationships that I've had, I mentioned it to them. My oldest son is a math professor at a small college out in the Midwest, and I still recall when I went to school, the teachers have office hours. Office hours are for students. They're not for the teacher to sit in his class in his office and get things done. It's time set aside for the teacher to meet with the students. So when you see office hours offered by one of your teachers, go see your teachers, meet your teachers. They're the ones that are going to be able to write letters of recommendations for you to get into other programs. They're the ones that are maybe able to offer you letters of recommendation for scholarships. I had a $500 scholarship just handed to me because I knew my teacher. He knew me, and he came to me and said, "Hey, there's a $500 scholarship available and nobody's applied for it. Would you like it?" And so that's important. Your teachers are there to help you. So everybody should get to know your teachers.
That's really good advice. We have recorded another webinar in this series with 3 college professors, and that's something that they've all talked about. So, Alan, I think that's really good advice. Erika, what piece of advice would you have for students?
Mine's somewhat similar. I was going to say find a mentor. Either someone in your career field. Is it a neighbor who's an engineer, or a teacher, a nurse, something like that. Find someone who is in that career field that you're interested in, or a professor. They're a great support person that you can. Hey, how did you handle this class? Or, just someone there that can guide you through your college career and then your career thereafter.
I think that's really good advice as well. Carl?
I'm going to have to piggyback off both Alan and Erica. I was a non-traditional student, which meant I went worked all the time I went to school. And the first thing I would do is introduce myself to my professors and say, "Look, I work and I travel, and sometimes I miss class, but I'll always let you know." And as far as Erica's point, I would say find the smartest kid in the class and become their friend.
It's really good advice. And Carl and Alan, I think both, really appreciate today that you guys shared that sometimes when you're in college, it gets hard. And Eric, I'm sure you've had some similar experiences. I think anyone who's been to college before knows that it gets hard, whether it's in the classroom, out of the classroom. We've all struggled, but you've all talked about that persistence and keeping a good attitude, I think is really important. So last question that we ask everybody, and Erica will let you kick us off on this one. If you could do anything outside of what you're doing right now, money, time, talent, didn't matter, what would you be doing?
Well, I absolutely love what I do. So with that being said, if money was no object and I can just do absolutely everything, anything that I wanted to do, I live on several acres, and I would love to have my own event venue on my property and do event planning for weddings and parties. So that's what I would do.
That sounds like a fun time. Carl?
Well, I am retired and I do live on a few acres, and I have a hobby farm, and I just enjoy working with my animals and piddling around. And if I want to work, I work. If I don't, I don't. So I'm kind of living out my dream, but it's only possible because of all the years of hard work that I put in uh, to make that happen. So if you want to be happy in retirement, you have to work hard to get there.
That's really good. Alan, what would you be doing?
Well, I'm like Carl. I was a non-traditional student. It took me about 15 years to find out what I really wanted to do. So I went to college to do that. So I'm really enjoying what I do. I might focus my career a little bit differently, but I'm having a blast doing what I do, and I really don't ever plan to retire. Now, like Erica said, if money was no object and you could just do anything you wanted to do, Crazy as it sounds, my dream would be to buy, 10, 20, 50, 100 acres somewhere and open up a housing development. I guess I don't know what you'd call it, but something where I could take in foster kids, because my wife and I worked with foster kids for years. We've adopted 2, in the process of adopting another one. So that's what I would do. I'd like to help kids, and go to law school. I'd like to go to law school so I could be more help than I already am. But I just like working with kids all the way around. They're just fun to be around.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Well, we appreciate all 3 of you joining us today. And I think if I took anything away from the last question there, it's that, and we've heard this several times on some of our other webinars, that if you find what you love to do and you show up and do it well every day and you work hard, it doesn't feel like you're at work. And I think it sounds like that's true of the 3 of you as well. So we appreciate you taking time. We appreciate that you're all mentors with Tennessee Achieves, that you all help us out in all these different ways in supporting our program. So thanks for being here today.
No, you're very welcome.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
And to our students that tuned in today, thanks for tuning in. I hope that you've learned some more information about careers in manufacturing and engineering. As someone who doesn't have a background in either of those things, I know that I took a lot away today from our panelists. Certainly a lot of career experience and experts in their field. So thank you again for being here today. Students, be a little bit more information for you about how to make sure you log these hours for community service. But thank you for tuning in, and please consider listening to some more of our webinars at www.tnAchieves.org. Thanks so much and have a great day. Thank you for watching this installment of the Tennessee Achieves Virtual Community Service webinar. Your attendance will be automatically recorded and your 1 hour of community service is being credited to you. Please click Submit on this screen to ensure that your attendance is recorded for you. For this community service opportunity, you will not need to complete the community service form. We hope you found this opportunity to be engaging and informative. Please watch more of this series by visiting www.tnachieves.org. We hope you have a great day. Thank you.